Hi, it's Lori from Ridgehaven Homestead again, and today I'm actually ready to take you into our cabin and start showing you some of the building updates. But before I did that, I just decided I would like to do a short video on why are we living off-grid, because there's so many reasons people live off-grid, and I would say that our reasons are similar to many people, but I hope that they're a little bit different too, because we're a unique family. The largest reason of all that we're living off-grid is because we feel definitely like the Lord led us to this property. And when we were looking at property several years ago, it was about 7 years ago, we were looking as a family, and we gathered everybody around and we did the pros and cons of all the I want to say homesteads, but the different properties that we were considering, and they were all kind of similar, all in the country, various amounts of land for each one. But we asked the boys, and at that time, you can imagine, they were littler and very active, and we had different goals. But we all felt like this property, with the woods, the lots of places to roam, is the one that we agreed on. And now, looking back after 5 years, we have a different perspective. The boys are older. They've been very involved with the house build from day one. With every area, they have been involved. And I'm sure they count that as a pro and a con, because it's taken a lot out of our lives. The boys have been a very active part in learning as we go, building processes. And we've all learned a lot. So we had some goals as we considered our property, and we had some dreams. We basically just wanted to live in the country. We didn't have a vision of living off the grid at first. And that just came as things played out and we saw the kind of property that we were dealing with. Then we started looking at our options. That's the beauty of life. You learn as you go. You don't know what you don't know until you jump in, and you do a lot of DIY projects. So we've been doing that whatever we need to learn for the next project. We usually have had to research it and go from there and apply it in our home. Our first reason for being off the grid is just personal. We have personal goals. We wanted the country living. We wanted to be a little bit detached from things. And we are not looking to be different. It just seems like that is the course that the Lord has led us on. We have had a goal of more simple living, and we have not completely achieved that. We have been living up on this property now for 5 years, so we're not newbies to country living. We have actually been doing country living for many years. I would say ever since we got married, we've been doing country living in one way, shape, or form. But this property is the most removed and the most rustic and rural that we have done to this date. We enjoy nature. We enjoy being out in nature. We're surrounded, if you can see, with woods all around. And when we bought our property, we were 100% wooded, up a slope, and it was basically the side of a hill. And so we knew that for the amount of money that we had, that's what we could buy. And so we just trusted that the Lord would help us figure out how to make it work. And He has. It hasn't been without its challenges, but we've learned. We're not looking to be different. We're not looking to be some recluses in the woods, but we do enjoy nature, and we enjoy growing things. We enjoy the garden aspect of it. And so that's one thing. That's one reason. The main reason, after just feeling like the Lord led us here, is a practical reason. Like I said, we bought the side of a hill, and It was completely wooded. We had to figure out a way to make that work. We had to figure out how to excavate the property, how to get through all the rock that we had on our property. And so as we did that, we discovered that we were going to be limited in our options. We were not going to be able to just have a standard electrical hookup because we just didn't have the accessibility. It was going to take too much work to blaze through the layers of boulders that we had to go through. And when we made our driveway, we had to go around those. Some of them we could, we hired an excavator man who is very, very experienced with doing excavation. He had worked many years in the Dakotas using heavy equipment. And so he wasn't a novice to the work, but when he couldn't get around some of the rocks, then we just had to work with what we had. So that is the first main reason why we decided to go off grid. We just realized once we called the electrical company up here to look at our land, they told us what it would require, and they told us that we would need a 30-foot swath through the woods of cleared trees. And as you can see behind me, maybe, we have so many trees, and that's what makes up our property, and that's what we love about our property. And so we really didn't want to clear all the trees out of our property all the way to the road. We wanted to keep the trees. We wanted that buffer. And we said, okay, so we don't want to have major power lines going through the woods so that we have to clear a 30-foot swath. So that was a negative. And then we said, well, we can just bury the lines. And they assessed our land and they said, well, there's a lot of rocks. And do you see these rocks behind me? These are all rocks that we pulled out as we've dug the septic, as we've dug the driveway and various things, as we've made terraces on our property. We get these big boulders, and they're big. I mean, they're as big that I could sit on them. They're not anything small. If we didn't have heavy equipment, we wouldn't be able to deal with those. Burying the lines 4 feet deep was going to be a very big challenge. And if we could do it, then it was going to be super expensive. And so we said, well, if we're going to have to pay $4,000, which is what we estimated it would be to dig through the rock to make the power lines get buried, we said, why not apply that to something sustainable? And so we did that. We put that into the solar. We actually got a personal loan so that we could move forward with that. But rather than taking the money and putting it toward grid power, the same money we applied toward off-grid power. So the practicality was it wasn't really gonna be feasible for us to dig through all that rock. Another reason why we opted to go off-grid was security. We like the idea of being more independent. We like having a backup plan for when the power goes out, and many times since we've even been up here living, the power has gone out in town, and once we were set up, we haven't known about it. That's kind of one small reason, but it is a factor, and we do like that idea of being off grid. We didn't really want to have the knowledge that we were tied to the grid and that everything depended on that. It kind of goes along with preparedness and sustainability. We just like the idea of being more sustainable, of knowing that the resources that we have are renewable, and we do realize that everything has a flaw. If you use solar, you're going to have a flaw. Things could go down. If you are using a generator, you're depending on the gas companies. If you're on grid power, you're depending on gas companies, trucking companies, a lot of things. No matter what you do, you're depending on something. And ultimately, our dependence is on God. We just wanted to use our resources in the way that we felt was the wisest for our situation. Our situation is not the same as your situation. So if you're saying, wow, I could never do that, we couldn't be off grid because XYZ, I will say that the solar has come down to a slightly more reasonable rate than it used to, and it was more attainable for us than it used to be when we first, like when Greg and I first got married. It was exorbitant, but now it's a little bit less like that. It's more sustainable. I will not say it's attainable for everyone, and I said sustainable, I meant attainable. It's a little bit more attainable than it used to be. We liked the solar because we're depending on the sun and not the grid. Once we have it set up, we like that. We have goals to always be learning what we can. And so we enjoy learning. We aren't necessarily afraid of hard work. We're not always like real gung-ho about it, but not terribly afraid of it. We've done a lot of things that have been really hard, and we've lived through it. And kind of my mantra about our whole experience is, if I can survive the first 5 years of living off the grid, when we had nothing set up, when we had no water system set up, when we had nothing figured out, if I can survive that, then you can survive that. I'm not going to say that I always loved it, because I will say everybody who knows me knows that I have had off and on serious challenges and tears over just the complications of living off grid and not having the conveniences. Does that mean I was having a tantrum and saying, stomping my foot and saying, we're not going to do this anymore? No, it's just working through the difficulties that this life is, because truly this life is different. Many times I just wish I could go into town, take a long hot shower, enjoy the electricity, surf the internet to my heart's content at a top speed, and not have to worry about all the little ins and outs of making it happen. So that's just honesty. Sometimes it's hard. After looking back for these 5 years, I believe it's worth it, everything we've gone through, but I wouldn't necessarily want to repeat everything that we did. We had to learn the hard way many times. So that's just a little truth in advertising, because everything you do has challenges. Like I said, we like to learn what we can. We like to have our boys learning by doing, and a large part of their homeschool experience has definitely been this homestead, this house build, this everything, fill in the blank. It's been a part of their education. And they are amazing. Our boys, I'm not bragging because we cannot take credit. It's just life and them adapting, and they have had their challenges too. It put, almost put me over the edge several times. It almost put them over the edge several times. And you see the cat in the tree? That's Chucky. Climbing the tree. Hey, Chucky. Yeah, I admire our boys so much because while they could be complaining, they've missed out on a lot of the normal things of teenage life and middle school life, because they've been learning off-gridding stuff, how to live off the land, how to wire a house, or they didn't wire the house, but they watched how to do the plumbing, how to run gas lines. They've done practically everything, at least been a part of it. And so that's a big part of our goal, is education and learning what we can and having our boys learn what they can so that they can have a well-rounded life be prepared for whatever the future throws at them. That has been one reason why we chose the off-grid life, or maybe I should say that has been a benefit of the off-grid life. We didn't really know we were going to be learning all those things when we first started out. I'm standing here, this is our okra, it's growing. It's called the Star of David, and it's so big. And Chucky is still up in the tree. I don't know what he's doing back there. He's such a nut. Aren't you, Chucky? Where are you? There you are. Okay, I feel like sometimes when we are off-gridding, and I want to say us, as well as anybody who is off-gridding. I'm just trying to see the cat, how he's going to get down from this tree. He's good at going up like Tigger, but not so good at coming down. Chucky, you are a nut. You made it. Good job. Okay, so what I was saying is, people who off-grid, the off-grid lifestyle, they get a reputation. And I know this because I've had these thoughts many times. Kind of like, what are they trying to prove? Because sometimes we, as an off-grid community or a certain segment of off-grid people, there's not really a certain qualification there, but I will say that when I've watched some off-gridders on YouTube and different channels, there is a we are out to prove something mentality. We are out to, I don't know, kind of an edge. And I don't know, but I hope we don't carry that edge. I've never felt like we needed to prove something, except for maybe me prove it to myself that I can really make it. That's not why we're doing this. We're not doing it to prove something. We're not doing it to show how awesome we are, because truthfully, we're not awesome. We are just learning. We're not here to prove anything. We're just looking at our options, looking at our resources, and we try to do the best we can with what we have. If we can't do it, like, hooking up to the power grid, if that's not practical, well, then we do it another way. We don't have an endless supply of money, and so that's why it's taken us so long to accomplish what we set out to do, because we don't have an endless supply of money. We started out, we went so far in our building project, and then we took a break, like a long break, like a couple of years break. And there's that cat. Yeah, we're not out to prove something to the world. If you like our journey, just follow along, but whatever. How do I say this? We're living off-grid. We're living in the country. I will say that the off-grid part of it is just a subcategory of country living. The country living is the goal for us. The off-grid part is just what we chose to do. We try to live healthfully, and so part of that is growing our gardens, trying to grow a lot of our own food. We're not even close. We do a summer garden, we do a winter garden, and a fall kind of in the middle. But we are so far just supplementing our diet. We're not living off of our garden yet, although that would be wonderful. That is a goal that we have. But that would entail growing grains, growing a lot more than we do. That's an inch by inch thing. One thing we're not doing is camping, although this may sound strange to you, because the truth is that my family, it was myself and me, our 3 boys, we moved right up onto this property to live in our camper. It's like 32 feet, 5 of us, I want to say under 300 square feet. And we did that, and my husband and I are still in the camper full time, and it's been in a week it'll be 5 years. And that's so strange for me to say that. It's almost hard for me to believe. That's why I keep saying 5 years. We never dreamed it would take this long. But it is what it is, and we've learned along the way. So we're not up here to camp, to rough it just because we can. We did it out of necessity. We wanted a place to live while we built. We lived 45 minutes away from our property. It was becoming a drag driving up here all the time. It was using up too much of our day, using up too much of our gas, and so we said we need to move on the property while we build. It's just going to be a lot easier that way. I don't know if it has been easier, but it's been more convenient to be on the property. But we'll talk more about living in the camper in another segment. While we have roughed it, that's not our main goal. That's just part of life, the learning curve of living and doing things without a real clear plan. Well, another thing we're not is we're not recluses. Now, I am an introvert and I do like having a little bit of time on my own, but we are not recluses. We still do things in town. We do things in town way more than we feel like we should. We're going to Lowe's several times a week because of our building project. And my husband runs a business in town. Yeah, we're not up in the mountains being mountain people. Just not. Yeah, I will say that topic has come up, and I think just the other day my husband said to me, that sounds so attractive, just to go where we do have no power, we have no like accessibility, where I don't have to answer the phone, because he's always on the phone with his business. He rarely gets a break, and so turning off the phone would be a good thing. But we're not recluses. We live close enough to town where we can get there in under an hour. So, I'll see, there's Chucky behind me. Always hanging around, this little guy. He's a good pal. Why else do we off-grid? Why are we off-gridding? Well, I mentioned that we are growing our gardens, and we had to cut into the land. We had to make terraces because we did by the side of a hill, which was fairly steep and wooded. So we had to cut everything that is cleared for gardens and the house and the solar panels and the greenhouse. Everything we had to cut into the side. Again, our friend Michael, he came with a rented excavator, and that's what he did for us. He just helped us so much by digging our terraces, making places for gardens, making place for our house. He was amazing, and we are very thankful to him for that. So while we are making gardens, and I say that while we have our gardens and while our goal is to live more sustainably, we are not out here living off the land, eating grubs and digging up roots, stuff like that. Now, we have taken classes on wild edibles and foraging, and that's something that we want to do more of, but we really don't have time for all that. We have a lot more projects going on than that will afford. So yeah, maybe even occasionally I will post something about foraging, because I do like to look for chanterelles, and some things from the woods are kind of fun to try, but we don't live on that stuff, and I mean that's not our way of life. We're seeking more of a simple life. That's the goal. Still striving on that one. One time somebody accidentally drove up our driveway, and we don't get that many visitors because we are pretty well removed from the road, and so you have to kind of plan to come up here because our driveway is long. And so he looked around and he was amazed, and he was like, "Do you want to sell your property? I will buy it." And he named an exorbitant price, and we were like, "What in the world?" First I was like, "No, there's no way. I do not want to sell our property." And my husband was like, "Well, how much do you want to offer?" I was just like, "You gotta be kidding me. We haven't even really lived in our property yet. We've lived, but we haven't lived in our house yet." And that's kind of important for me. For a woman who is homemaking, She needs a home. And so I honestly don't ever want to move, because we've put so much into building this property, making our home, even though it's simple, it is simple, it's small, but it's ours, and it has our touches in it. Anyway, I don't want to sell it. I want to live in it, and I want to enjoy it and sit on our front porch and look out and enjoy the nature that's around us. So this man, he drove up our driveway, and he was from the biggest town, and he works with solar and with green energy. And he saw our panels, and he said, "Oh, you guys are environmentalists," and yada yada yada. And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, I'm out here working in my garden, and we do have the solar panels, and we are off-grid, but I really don't think of us as environmentalists. We're not environmentalists, okay? We're not activists. We try to be respectful. We try to use the land responsibly, and that is the extent of our environmentalism. Because I feel like I'm kind of trying to elevate the role of the off-grid woman. You can be an off-grid woman and be fully modest and be working hard and living a traditional life, having a husband and children, and still be off-grid. We raise our vegetables, we have our gardens, we have our greenhouse, we use herbs. If push comes to shove and somebody's sick, we will grab the natural remedies before we grab the pharmaceuticals. We try to live simply and healthfully and more naturally. And all these reasons, I think I've listed a bunch of them, are the reasons why we off-grid. Practical, simple, healthy, out of necessity, and we enjoy the country. So as we go forward with other videos, you'll see more of what we do, and I'm trying to work up the nerve to show you in our house. And the reason I haven't so far is because it's a work in progress. And so you have 15 projects going on simultaneously, and I just need to go tidy them up, and then I'm going to show those to you. And as you go through our cabin, it's not perfect. We have learned as we have gone, and I guess that's the joy and the beauty of it. We can do it, we can learn, you can too, and hopefully what you see will inspire you to get out there and not be as intimidated, to say, we can try it. If we fail, we know what we've done, and we'll try it again, or we might have to call a professional, but at least we've learned a little bit of something. So why do you off-grid? Or like, you may not off-grid, you might just have an interest in it. What are the things that draw you to an off-grid life? There's so many things for different people, and so many reasons why the different people. You ask 12 people, you're going to find 12 different answers on what is important for every family. So I wanted to say one more thing as well. So the off-grid living that we do, our goal is not, and don't get me wrong, I'm moving more toward this idea, but we're not minimalists. Our goal is not to have a super, super rustic cabin in the woods. We actually want to live comfortably, not in luxury, but we want to live comfortably. So we're building a house. It is a cabin, but it's not like a rough one-room cabin. It's a 3-bedroom, and it's a house. It's where we plan to live. It's not a getaway. It's not a bug out. It's just a house for us. That's just an explanation, because if I say we're off-grid and then you expect us to not have running water or something, that's not what we're after. I do want the running water. I do want to take a shower, and I want it to be hot. In a pinch, I want a little air conditioning, and we have some window units. We're just trying to be as frugal as we can, but be comfortable. I would appreciate if you would tell me what your ideas are for off-grid living. One time somebody told me when I was asking about a dishwasher, and actually we don't have a dishwasher yet, or I shouldn't say yet, we don't really plan to. I just didn't want to squeeze that into our already small kitchen. But he said, you asking about a dishwasher means that you're not really living off-grid. And I was like, that's your opinion. And he said living off-grid means living like Little House on the Prairie. And I thought that was funny because, you know, the Little House on the Prairie that you see on TV is actually just a TV show. Yes, it portrays a way of life, but even that is kind of romanticized. So it's, in other words, it's not 100% real life, and that's not our goal. There are aspects of that lifestyle that we definitely appreciate and that we could learn more from, but our goal isn't to replicate that life. We do live in another century, and we do have different conveniences that we are so blessed to take advantage of. Our philosophy is we're not here just to make it hard. Some of our journey has been hard, but we're not here with the goal of making it hard just because we want to prove something. And I don't feel like we have to, but let me know what you think. Let me know what living off the grid means to you and your ideal off-grid life. What would that look like? Would you have solar? Would you have wind power? Would you even want a generator? Would you like to be completely off in a tent or a bug out cabin? All these things are different ways to do it. And, you know, at some point, I'm sure we'll need to live even more simply, and, you know, we might need to live with less. But for now, this is what we're doing. And it's been what is working for us. You are welcome to comment about what you think about what we're doing and engage in some dialogue. I'm more curious to see what it looks like for you. What are your ideas? What are some of your fears? And yeah, what does it look like to you?